We recorded this episode a few days after 31-year-old U.S. conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. Like many, I saw the video online, and it's really devastating to think that we've gotten to this point where there are disagreements online that are leading to political violence. As someone who spends a lot of time on social media, I have seen this firsthand. I think it's fair to say that the temperature is rising. I've also been on the receiving end of online hate, sometimes from people I know who can't seem to engage in respectful discourse without hurling insults or lobbing threats. It is really a scary time, Jeff. And in this case, it led to actual murder.
Yeah, and I'm no big fan of Charlie Kirk, other than I did like his openness to debate. Although what that showed most of the time is how completely intellectually unprepared a lot of people are to defend very strongly held beliefs. So I think there's a lesson in that. But you know, the number of people who kind of actively were celebrating his death online, that's a really bad sign. People, you don't want to encourage political assassinations. That's not the world we want to live in. And it's just another part of the escalating level of political violence that the States has seen and probably hasn't seen these levels since the 1960s. So the difference being now we've got a bunch of half-wits, sadists, and grifters on social media pouring gasoline on the fire. So yeah, it's not a good thing. It's really a cause for concern.
And I think one of the things that we really want to do on this show is to have conversations that are rooted in data. So I just want to pick up on that point. You talked about escalating political violence, and that is absolutely true. And we have numbers to show that. I was watching CNN and they put up a chart that talked about violence against key political figures starting in 2011. And that was, of course, the shooting of Gabby Giffords. There were a couple of cases over the course of the next 10 years. But then it really started to escalate in 2022. And out of the 10 examples of political violence that they showed, 7 or 8 of them were in just the last few years. And most of them were in 2025.
Wow.
So it is scary, and we have the numbers to show that as well. We're going to switch gears now and talk about another story that has been trending. And this one is in a totally different direction, all about Apple's annual fall iPhone event. It didn't seem like there was that one more thing moment that we all know in Apple events. But Jeff, it looks like another solid line of products. What stood out for you?
So I think the big thing that they're positioning as the major announcement there is what Tim Cook called the newest member of the iPhone family, the iPhone Air. So this seems sort of nestled between the iPhone 17 and the 17 Pro in terms of features and cost. It's a completely new design. It actually looks quite beautiful. It's only 5.6 millimeters thick, so that's the thinnest iPhone ever. Got a 6.5-inch display that includes what they're calling the plateau, which is sort of a big bump out to hold the extra thickness of the cameras in some other gear. And that design's been carried over to the new iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. So that's pretty neat. Something that's very cool, though, that you might not pick up on is the entire iPhone lineup, the new iPhones, now have square camera sensors. And what this means is that you no longer have to turn your phone on its side to get your maximum resolution landscape video or photo. So because the sensor is square, it's the same no matter where you have it. So that's really cool. It'll look bigger on the screen if you turn it to the side, but in terms of quality, it'll be just the same either way. And they also have added center stage to all the cameras. That's the one that follows you around when you move. And better image stabilization and other cool features. And in fact, just one of the ways they demonstrated using this, and I think it was on the Air, is they have somebody at a basketball game recording the basketball game with their rear camera, and then the front-facing camera has them in a little box over the video. So it's simultaneously recording 2 types of video, and the center stage allows it to keep your head in sort of a little box on the main screen when you're recording something on the other side. So they've really wrapped the technology up to some pretty cool features. I think there's going to be a lot of, online content creators who are going to be pretty happy about these
Yeah, that sounds super cool. And I have to say, I was talking about the new iPhone on a local radio station in Toronto, and I was trying to describe just how thin it is. And I did a bunch of comparisons online, and the iPhone Air is almost comparable to two nickels stacked on top of each other. If you're wondering just
Wow.
how thin it took me a while to find that, but
That's a really good one. Yeah.
it's a good one just to try to visualize it. Also, let's talk a little bit about storage, because when it comes to the new iPhones, you are starting with more storage. Anything else that you thought was cool?
Yeah, I think the 256 gigs of baseline storage, that move should have been made long ago. They also announced new Apple Watches. Nothing super exciting there, but everything looks good. But the AirPods Pro 3 headphones were actually a big standout for me. And the big reason why is on top of getting IP57 water resistance, which is super handy and the first time in AirPods Pro, is that they have this new live translation feature. So this works with your iPhone to simultaneously translate what somebody's saying to you in another language. If that person also has AirPods Pro 3, then it works both ways. So you basically can simultaneously talk. It will duck the other person's voice and translate their foreign language to your language in your ear and do that back and forth. If only one of you has it, so if I just have the AirPods Pro 3 and the other person doesn't, it'll do that for me, so I hear them speaking in English. When I speak back to them in English, it will show on my phone what I'm saying in text, and they can play that back as well. So cool. It reminds me of like the Babel fish from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or the universal translator in Star Trek. And I think that's a really empowering, kind of wonderful feature to add. And I know other companies are working at this too, but the way Apple demoed it there looks very compelling. So I can't wait to try that out.
Yeah, I mean, and we mentioned that off the top of the show. I think it makes traveling more accessible, right? You know, you can
Mhm.
actually travel and be able to speak, I put that in quotes, the local language. So, really, really cool. In other news, the US Federal Trade Commission says it's launching an inquiry into AI chatbots acting as companions to companies including OpenAI, Meta, XAI, Alphabet, and Snap, asking them how they, and we're quoting here, measure, test, and monitor potentially negative impacts of this technology on children and teens. Jeff, we have talked a lot about this in the past, and your segment on ChatGPT's role in the 16-year-old suicide of a young boy that attracted a lot of attention. Do you think that this has an opportunity to actually improve things in terms of safety?
I mean, I think shedding light on stuff like this is always good. So that's great. I also think there's got to be some political legs for the stance of we want to protect kids online. So I'm hoping that's something that can cross the aisle in terms of getting support from both sides. So positive in terms of first steps. Uh, I hope there's some very serious follow through, though, and that it doesn't take forever to get the information they need from some of these companies. We talked about how Tesla was found like hiding information in the previous court case around the Tesla autopilot death. Um, and speaking of OpenAI and legal implications, the Canadian news publishers who filed a copyright violation suit against OpenAI in Ontario last fall, they're now fighting OpenAI's argument that the case should actually be heard in the United States instead of in Canada.
Oh, wow. Well, let's hope that that does not happen. It's a pretty complex case and the first of its kind in Canada. So we'll have to wait and see. Just one note on that, Jeff. I think about the copyright issues when it comes to publishers and how these models are trained. And I think about the fact even individual creators, you know, if you're uploading anything online, all of a sudden you can get banned from that platform if they detect even like 5 seconds of music that you don't own. But
Yeah.
these models are being trained on, you know, the copyrighted material from thousands, if not millions of people. So what a weird world we live in. You talked about the uber wealthy in your segment, the other Mac, last week, but it looks like we have a new richest person. This is Oracle's Larry Ellison, whose wealth has been growing quickly as the result of cloud computing deals and AI companies such as OpenAI.
Yeah, so OpenAI signed a $300 billion deal for computing power with Oracle. This is one of the several things that tipped Larry Ellison over into the richest person. That may go back and forth. Who knows? You know, stock market values. So he co-founded Oracle. He owns a 41% stake of it, so that's pretty impressive. And it looks like the unprecedented hunger for cloud infrastructure is helping NVIDIA, Broadcom, and other stocks uh, go up in value as companies in the supply chain, as well as Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, and others invest billions into AI infrastructure. So there is a bit of a high tide raising all boats for this, but yeah, it looks like Larry and Oracle have come out on top.
Well, we've talked about this before, but there's an incredible amount of money being spent right now. And one place where we don't see money spent, unfortunately, is in our schools, which are also the subject of cyber attacks and the like. A recent analysis from the UK's Information Commissioner's Office has shown that of the 215 data breaches of educational institutions that they analyzed, this is crazy. 57% of them were conducted by students.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, not funny, but before anyone thinks we've got a new generation of super hackers in the UK, we should note that almost a third of these hacks were accomplished just by guessing easy passwords or literally finding the login details written down somewhere. But that said, they did estimate that about 5% of the student attacks used advanced hacking methods. So there are probably some Mr. Robot types out there as well.
Wow, that kind of blew me away. Now, speaking of hacking, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, in a message release with US partners, is warning Canadian tech startups about the risks involved in participating in international pitch competitions organized by the Chinese government, noting that, quoting here, startups participating in these competitions can lose their intellectual property, have their data misused, and see their talent recruited by competitors.
Yeah, it's interesting that they came out with this. They also cited the case of pitch competitions held in Canada, Britain, the US, and Australia last year, where winners were pressed to create businesses in the Chinese city that sponsored the event and also provide detailed banking, personal, and passport data to receive any awards or investment, as well as saying that the additional warning being that participants should assume that if they're traveling abroad for these kinds of things to pitch, they should absolutely assume they're being spied on as well. So, it's an interesting warning to have to pay attention to. I'm not quite sure how startup founders deal with this, but it shows, and as we'll talk about, the dangers with China.